Coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware, multi-user MIMO Wi-Fi tested, new Amazon Fire TV, and a new Amazon $50 tablet, liquid-cooled GPUs, new, better power chargers for your phones and tablets. The HD Plex 5 is an amazing case, and more. It's all coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twitch.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 333, recorded September 17th, 2015. A good 300.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Ting.com. Ting is a mobile phone service that helps you save money by offering a fair price for the services you use. Visit twitch.ting.com and get $25 towards your first device or service, and to find out how much you can save. And by Braintree. If you're working on a mobile app and searching for the right payments API, check out the Braintree V.0 SDK. With one simple integration, you get every way to pay. To learn more and to try out the sandbox, go to braintreepayments.com/twitch. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With the built-in HD camera and microphone, you can monitor your front door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like being home even when you're not. Right now, get $10 off the Ring Video Doorbell when you go to ring.com/twitch.
Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware. I'm Patrick Norton, joined as always by Mr. Ryan Shrout, and can I see Ryan really quickly? Ryan and I are going to deliver the most amazing collection of hardware news possible on September 17th, 2015. Brace for impact, people. It's going to be stunning.
I was worried at first that you were promising too much, but then you specified possible on this date, and I'm like, okay, that's probably more reasonable. I think we'll be able to handle that. Man. Yeah,
I did that for you.
I like to keep expectations as low as possible. Yeah.
Is that something that started in high school or
way before that? Or? No, way before that. Yeah, it has continued on to my adult life. Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. So the iPhones are coming. A lot of people who were in on the first round of iPhone 6S and 6S Plus are seeing their Apple Store information go to preparing for shipping. Apparently, Apple did not forecast enough 6S Plus phones, so the times for that are stretching out, possibly in part because for the first time, September 25th, when the launch weekend, when they start shipping the phones out and dropping them in stores, China is included, and at least one analyst was saying they expected China alone to be worth 2 million iPhones. Apple says they are completely on track to sell more than 10 million iPhones, or to ship, I guess, more than 10 million iPhones that opening weekend for the launch. So iOS 9 came out this week, which promises, amongst other things, a big, healthy, they're saying as much as an hour plus boost in battery life. I'm really excited. I didn't realize that iOS 9 and a bunch of the reports are saying it's taken, they've condensed the operating system storage down so much from over 4 gigabytes to just over 1 gigabyte. So if you have a 16 gigabyte phone, you probably are going to pick up 3 gigabytes of storage just by upgrading to iOS 9, which is a pretty big thing. Did not expect this, especially given all the hardware shakeups over at Amazon. But Amazon has dropped, I like The Verge's title, Amazon's answer to Apple TV, a Fire TV box with Alexa and 4K video support. So that's going to be interesting. Apple TV steps up with some pretty good voice support, a lot of additions to the Apple TV. Someday we'll even be able to pre-order it. Let me make sure they haven't dropped that yet. But essentially, Alexa can queue up music through the TV. And in the future, we'll power simple searches. Alexa, play episode 3 of Transparent, says The Verge, in the guise of Lauren Good writing for The Verge. I don't think she's in the guise of anything. But good for them. It'll be interesting to see. This is kind of interesting because of the debacle. There is no other word for the Amazon Fire phone. That was a hot mess.
That was bad.
They just didn't work. The other thing that came up, if you go to Amazon.com, they're probably, by the time you're listening to this or watching this, still running the introduction to the 7 all-new members of the Fire family, including the Fire, an entirely new standard for low-cost tablets, the Fire HD8, the Fire HD10, the Fire Kids Edition, which I can't tell if it's upgraded or not, the Fire TV Stick, the Fire TV, the Fire TV Gaming Edition. So a lot of layoffs at Amazon's. Yeah, a lot of layoffs at Amazon's hardware division, but they're obviously firing back. Terrible, terrible pun. I apologize for in a big way.
From a hardware perspective, the new Fire TV is a little bit interesting. So it does support 4K, but it's 4K 30, so it's not HDMI 2.0.
Right. That's
which is. I mean, it's fine for video content, right? The truth is most of the streaming content you're getting, even at 1080p, is still 30 hertz, 30 frames per second. So I think 4K at 30 is a good stepping stone in the right direction. They're claiming 75% more processing power. I don't know if that was necessary for them to really do 4K decoding in the way that they need to. Right. Maybe that helps with that. But they're also talking about the gaming advantages of that. I don't think very many people are going to use a Fire TV for gaming, but there's that. It also does support HEVC for 1080p video as well, which apparently Fire TV customers will now experience more high-quality 1080p streams from Amazon Video. So apparently Amazon Video will be streaming in HEVC in the not-too-distant future, which is interesting, I guess, in that regard. I'll be curious to see what they do. I guess they say you can watch Amazon original series, including Transparent, Catastrophe, and Man in the High Castle in 4K. So, and then House of Cards is in 4K Ultra HD as well on Netflix. So there will be some content there if you happen to have a 4K TV. So I pre-ordered one of these today, just to kind of another 4K input source to try to see if we can demonstrate that it's time to start looking at that. And it's interesting to see Amazon specifically call out cord cutting and then adding an HD antenna to your home entertainment system for local channels and stuff like that.
They're an interesting company. I mean, it's curious that they do that. I'm sure they feel like anything they do to move people off of cable and onto sticking with Prime is a big deal. I'm a little disappointed that it's 30 hertz and not 60 hertz. But A, there's barely any 4K content at all, and B, gosh, I guess they'll just hit you with a 60 hertz version. Now it's funny because I've done so little. I've done so little looking at the Amazon Prime content in 4K. Now I want to look at it and see if it's actually in 4K or excuse me, in 60 hertz or 30 hertz.
I'm pretty sure that they're only streaming 30 hertz on all that stuff right now. Anyway,
which is okay for video.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like I feel like we give 30 hertz a bad rap here, but that's mostly like if you're using it as a desktop and interacting with the mouse or playing games on it and that type of stuff. But if you're just watching video, I would imagine most of your HD content that you're watching already is at 30 hertz, 30 frames per second.
Most of your, if you watch movies, you're watching in 24 frames per second. And I think you probably have been enjoying it for years, even on Blu-ray. I don't know what that voice was about, so let's just move away from it. So, $50 Amazon tablets, new Fire TV. The iPhones are coming. The multi-user MIMO era begins. Killer wireless AC 1535. And I'm gonna mock here because this is like the only multi-user MIMO. MIMO, device, I think, on the planet. We were talking to the Wirecutter a couple weeks ago on Tech Thing, and the interesting conversation I had was like, can anybody even do multi-user MIMO yet? And the response was no. You can't even get adapters for it. So multi-user MIMO is the idea that you'll be able to do, MIMO basically time slices MultiUser MIMO will be able to connect to multiple clients simultaneously and give you better speed, which we like. We always like more speed. But the killer 1535 Wi-Fi adapter was the first 2x2 MultiUser MIMO compatible adapter on the market when it launched earlier this year. I've never actually seen any in the wild, but Sebastian and the PC Per crew got hands-on with the MSI G72 Dominator Pro G-Sync laptop using the new Linksys EA8500 MultiUser MIMO router. Dude, was it amazing? Did you weep with joy?
I mean, no, but it does correctly demonstrate the benefits of what MU MIMO will be able to do when it's more widely available, right? The advantages of the time slicing that you talked about are real. And the problem with the current implementation is that you can really only do that with one device. The rest of the devices kind of screw that up. But MIMO is what allowed initially for us to just get higher performance, right, out of a single device. Now with multi-user MIMO, you can kind of evenly spread out that performance without damaging the performance of other devices on the network. The issues that come into play are as soon as you have MU MIMO devices on that same network, you run into complications with it. So we really do need to see kind of more of these adapters supporting it. And no, there's not, I don't know of any other ones out on the market that will support it. But we've had, like the new Qualcomm 820 Snapdragon chip will have built-in MU MIMO. So, right, so that whole generation of smartphones that comes out will support multi-user MIMO. And the killer wireless AC card in this laptop just happens to be one that supports it out of the gate. And the real benefit is like you'll see some performance improvements even like on direct transfers. If your laptop and the router are the only things that are communicating on it, the real advantage comes in. I would imagine most people who listen to the show or watch the show have had the experience of you've got an 802.11 AC or an 802.11n router. You've got a capable device, whether it be a laptop or a phone. You're trying to transfer something between two machines or copy something, and the transfer is incredibly slow. You don't really understand why. Sebastian demonstrates this by having these two wireless devices, having one start a file copy of like a Windows ISO or something like that, something that will take a while over wireless, and it gets up to its speed of about 35, 40 megabytes per second. And then you start a transfer of the same file or a similar file on a device that's supposed to be faster, right? This is the AC device. This is the one that has multi-user MIMO, but you have the technology disabled in the router. So we're kind of emulating what you would get on a typical router today. And all of a sudden your system's only running at like 6 or 8 megabytes per second. It doesn't really make any sense, right? You switch on multi-user MIMO and you get this division of performance, right? So the guy who started his transfer originally loses a little bit of performance as the second guy starts his transfer, but they kind of balance out to 20 to 30 megabytes per second, which is what you would expect to see and what you would kind of, I think, want to see in a shared networking environment, right? You don't want some transfers going at a couple of hundred to a couple of megs per second when there is the potential for them to kind of balance out evenly, I guess. And multi-user MIMO will solve that, and it will make it a more generalized thing that routers are able to handle, as long as the devices themselves can do it as well. So there's kind of like a chicken egg thing here about you got to have routers, you got to have devices, they all need to communicate, but it is part of the 802.11 IEEE spec coming out, right? So it will be in there, and more devices will be able to I guess take advantage of that capability. So
it almost seems like you'd want to run 2 separate routers until you have more adapters.
Yeah, I mean, you could see that, right? I mean, you could kind of do that today if you have a router that's dual band, right? You could have a 2.4 and a 5, and if you put the rest of your family that you don't like on the 2.4 and you only allow your own devices to use the 5 gigahertz radio or something like that, you could do that too. I mean, we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, the Asus router that's coming out that has 2 5 gigahertz radios and one 2.4 gigahertz radio. And again, you can separate things out that way. And you'll have the same advantages. And again, even on the MU MIMO side, there's still limitations, right? The router has to have enough antenna and kind of access points on it, if you will, in order to properly share with multiple devices. So if it's a 3x3 device, maybe you can handle 3 multi-user MIMO connections simultaneously. If you add in a 4th one, you kind of go back into that time slicing issue of kind of variable performance drop. So it's still not perfected, and this is why gigabit wired Ethernet is still the preferred choice for the the people who are really pushing transfer speeds.
There you have it. Something I'm a little excited about. I talked to Corsair, and I've got a couple of Corsair's prepackaged, pre-built water cooling systems to come in, because we're going to do sort of a comparison between those and your basic old school DIY water block and tubing get up, along with air cooling, which should be fun or terrifying. I haven't quite decided which that's going to be. I think fun, because it'll be overclocking and other mayhem. But there's a quick link up on PC for Aqua Computer. They've started selling a full cover water block for AMD's R9 Nano graphics card. Tim Berry wrote this up. 1, that is a beautiful piece of copper. 2,
yes,
that is a beautiful layout. So what you're looking at there, it's a big old piece of copper lines up above the board, and the clear section is essentially the part where the water passes over the part where the chip is, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm really impressed with how pretty that is. Brushed stainless steel top cover, all copper with micro channels over the GPU portion. Those micro channels, those little thin lines there, are designed to basically create as much surface area as possible over the processor to remove heat or to move heat off of there. Less expensive than I would have thought. 89, 90 euros, 99.90 euros for the acrylic glass see-through edition. And, if I was going to buy one of these, that's the time to put make sure your case has a porthole on the side of it. They're pretty. They're really pretty. I don't know if I can justify one, and I'm afraid to find out what it would cost to have a water block shipped from Germany. But they've also, they've got, Radeon R9 Fury X, GTX Titan X water blocks. So, water cooling is much more alive than I thought it was, but I will say it is a little more difficult to find these days. Those are pretty. Yeah. Those are really pretty.
It's a really nice looking piece of hardware. Again, you're talking about a niche, like the R9 Nano is already a niche product for a very specific audience. People who want a water block for that, or even a significantly smaller group than that. So they're not as expensive as I expected them to be, I guess. I think they're listed at the bottom, maybe it's $100 or 99 euros. So depending on what they decide to translate that into in US American dollars, I guess. We'll have to see, but it's not as expensive as I expected it to be, I guess, which is just a positive thing.
And terribly unusual.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Corsair and MSI have introduced Hydro GFX liquid-cooled GeForce GTX 980 and Ti. So Corsair makes adapters that will allow you to use their pre-assembled water cooling systems that are normally used for CPUs. They have adapters that will put them on a number of AMD and NVIDIA boards. And this one... I should start using the correct terminology as Sebastian does. Attached closed-loop liquid cooler, or closed-loop liquid cooler, i.e. non-DIY, and very unlikely unless you hack at it with a knife that it's going to leak inside of your case and kill your motherboard. But that's pretty cool. That is the MSI GeForce GTX 980 Ti with an integrated aluminum bracket cooled by a Corsair Hydro Series H55 liquid cooler. 30% cooler than standard cards while running at higher clock speeds with no throttling, boosting the GPU clock 20% and graphics performance up to 15%. $739.99 is the MSRP. We don't know what the street price is going to be. And there is a warranty of 3 years. That's just feels expensive.
It's so an MSRP for a reference 980 Ti is $649 or so. So you're paying expensive. An $80 add-on for the water cooling stuff. Which is interesting to me. It's like first of all, Corsair is now selling a video card. They're not just selling the cooler for it, and also MSI today announced this exact same product, but just under the MSI branding. I think they called theirs something else. I gotta remember what it was. But they have a different branding for it. So it's obviously the card is being made by MSI. It'll probably be marketed by Corsair in the US, maybe, you know, for Fry's and Best Buy, maybe some of that kind of more retail channel. Let's see, what's the MSI one called? The MSI one is called, just saw it, Seahawk. The GTX 980 Ti Seahawk.
The Seahawk.
Get it because water, you know.
Yeah, I'm with you. And football. Water and football and Seattle and being wet and miserable.
Sure.
Except that your card won't be met or miserable. It'll be overclocked and taking names and kicking ass. I don't know. I feel like water cooling's back all of a sudden. I had no idea. Excuse me. Liquid cooling.
Yeah.
Showing my age again. You know, you don't, just to take a moment to thank our sponsor, twitch.ting.com. You can save $25 off your first device or in Ting credit. I know you've heard us talk about Ting before. If you're in the market, Ting's average phone bill is $23 per phone. They got the T-Mobile GSM network and the Sprint CDMA network, which is pretty awesome. It means you can add GSM phones now. Their U.S. mobile phone service on 2 nationwide networks, T-Mobile and Sprint phone service. It doesn't believe in contracts, overage fees, or unlimited plans. This is cool. I like the fact that they've got 2 different networks under their accounts now. Ting's claim to fame has always been pricing. They resell phone service at a really good rate. There's no overage charges. There's no penalties. There's no contracts. It's always month to month. You only pay for what you use each month. You know, if you have to file an ETF or pay an ETF to move to Ting, Ting will give you a credit of 25% on your ETF up to $75 per device for coming to Ting. You can go to ting.com/ETF for more information on that. 80% of the smartphones and non-smartphones can come to Ting. You can use their device checker at ting.com/BYOD. That's bring your own device to see if you can move your phone over to Ting or your modem. They've got a really awesome control panel. It's really easy to see what you're using, who's using it, what phone's using it, what your billing's at. And Ting has a ton of options in their online shop if you want to upgrade your device. And Ting will walk you through getting started, including bringing over your existing number or getting a new one. Twitch.ting.com is the website to go to if you want to get $25 on your first device or service. It's really cool. Seriously. You're watching This Week in Computer Hardware. You like a deal. $25 off select devices or mobile phone services just for getting started. That's twitch.ting.com. We want to thank them for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. It's good stuff.
Yep.
So inexpensive. I like the inexpensive. I'm going to take us on a brief diversion for a couple minutes about power chargers, and I'm going to blame or compliment the Skiva, which is just a terrible name, Powerflow 7 stand charger. It's a 7-port USB charger and organizer. And I should probably stop talking about it because you reviewed it. But this is horribly named, but given the pile of messy cables in the corner of my kitchen where our charger is, our charging station organizer is, which invariably people start yanking the cables out and it gets messy. This is pretty crazy looking, right? So the idea is that you rack up your phones or tablets. They've got a bunch of pretty decent chargers on there with smart detection. So, it'll feed up to 2.4 amps per device. Will it do all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Will do all ports simultaneously, 2.4 amps? Or
it will. It'll
really?
Run all, it can power all 7 at the maximum 2.4 amps. It's got I think it comes with a 80-watt power adapter on there.
That's pretty awesome.
Got like little plastic dividers so that you can stack and not, I guess not stack, but kind of angle them into place, right? So if you're like me, I imagine what your countertop is at home is much like ours was. It's like, well, my wife's phone, my phone, she has a tablet, I have a tablet. Usually have like one testing device there. I have Bluetooth headphones that charge through USB. My watch charges through USB, and there's kind of this mess of stuff there. And this helps keep it a little bit organized. You don't have tablets on top of phones. You don't have them all spread across a whole wide area on that desktop or countertop, I guess. And you kind of get them stacked up and easy to access. You still have wiring issues if you're using your standard USB cables, right? If you have a 6-foot USB cable, you're going to end up with this kind of cacophony or rat's nest of wires as you kind of unplug and replug and things get twisted and tangled and moved around. They do have a solution for that as well. If you look at I think it's the last picture in the story, they have those basically 6 to 8 inch cables that are meant to be permanently attached to the charger device. And then they have a micro SD and a lightning adapter on the end of them. Scroll up just a little bit there and you'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah, that cable there that's kind of attached to that iPad. That can attach to an iPad, or obviously if you undo the adapter, any Android phone that uses micro USB. The problem is those cables aren't cheap. Like the small cables with the adapter are probably $9 to $10 a piece, which kind of doubles your investment into a USB charger if you want to do that, because the stand charger itself from Skiva is $65, which is a little bit high, but you know, sure, whatever. But then if you're going to spend another $60 on little cables to charge it all, that's a little bit of a reach, I guess. But like I said, I mean, you can see in some of the pictures there that you know, you can use your own cables. You can absolutely do it. Chances are, if you're like us, you have a lot of extra USB cables sitting around, so you'd be able to kind of do that as well. But it does keep things neat. Like we use it here at the office. I actually probably need at least 1 or 2 more of these to keep everything like fully juiced up and ready to go in terms of review devices. But it does help keep our shelf more organized. And I will probably invest in more of those cables to try to keep it clutter-free as well. But I think a lot of people think, well, I don't have 7 phones. Why do I need this? But, you know, like we just talked about, I have a phone. My wife has a phone. Tablet. Then up to 4. Headphones, my watch. You got a friend over, or a couple of friends over to watch football or something like that. They want to charge their phones because they're low. You know, you have capability for all of that without having to go, oh, let me go see if I can find another wall adapter for you and get a cable and all that stuff. That happens all the time during holidays and stuff when the family's in town.
I got to say, you could use one of the, you know, something else I think both of us own, which is an Anker wall charger. I've got a 60-watt version of the PowerPort 6. They've recently come out with the PowerPort 10, which is kind of insane. You know, these do, you know, in the case of like the PowerPort 10, it does 12 amps total, which is kind of a bummer. That means you can't, you know, feed 2+ amps to 10 sockets simultaneously. There's not enough juice inside the device. But something I've been using on my desktop for a while that I just wanted to point people out to is a USB 3.0 data hub that includes 3 PowerIQ charging ports that are powered externally. This is another Anker product. I really like this because I've needed more USB 3.0 ports on this particular desktop I'm using, and this allows me to charge things without having them try to sync themselves to the machine. It's USB 3.0, and it adds, you know, a lot, 7 USB 3.0 ports, and power, you know, basically full power for just about anything I could plug into those 3 additional ports simultaneously. So, and like everything else we run into from Anker, it seems to be extremely well built, which is a big plus. You know, don't particularly need another power cable running under my desk, but now I don't have any issues with charging. I don't need a separate charger on my desk, and I've got the USB 3 ports, USB 3.0 ports that I've been begging for, So, yeah, 2.1 amps per ports on those 3 PowerIQ ports, and then up to 0.9 amps on the other 7 ports. That's a lot of power, man.
I'd still like to see more of these with like the quick charge support, right? So like I have one portable USB battery that has quick charge support that is has been infinitely useful for me when I was out of town this weekend, and I was in a place all day with low cell phone reception, so my battery was low. Got back to the hotel. I had 30 minutes to take a shower and change clothes and go to dinner. And it's like, okay, well, I can get a whole lot more juice out of a turbocharge phone with a turbocharge, you know, source than I could out of even a 2.4 amp or a 2 amp charger. And so that was incredibly helpful. So I like to see more of these devices that kind of support that as well, I guess. But I don't know. There's licensing involved in that, right? Because it's a Qualcomm technology too. So,
man, it's you know, and it's funny. You think more devices with Qualcomm would have the quick charging, or is it automatically included on anything with the newer Qualcomm chipsets?
It's not automatically because it has to be supported by the chip, and then they have to build the power input, like on the PCB itself to support it. But I think a lot of them are now. I would say more and more are supporting it. And they did just announce Quick Charge 3.0 at the LTE Summit last week that it increases the speed a little bit of how fast you can charge, but it's not that's not their big emphasis on that one. It was more on doing it while expanding the life cycle of the batteries, like basically intelligently applying the voltage at the right time so that they keep the batteries lasting longer than a year or so without wearing out, which I think is, for many people, just as important, if not more important than just charge time.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually surprised. I'm kind of like, wait a minute, you don't carry around like a 12,000 milliamp hour battery like I do everywhere. I mean, look, here's a spare 15,000 milliamp battery.
Yes. It's just a matter of being able to use it at the right times, right? So it's in my bag and 2 other rooms away or something like that. But yes, I always have 2 extra batteries with me wherever I go. But if I happen to, like, if I'm going out to dinner, I don't want to take my bag. I also don't want to have to carry the extra battery pack in my pocket while I'm out there.
Why not?
Well, it's just a little
pockets
weird.
Are for?
You got your pocket with one charger with a cable going out to your phone in another pocket, I guess. Back in the days when I used to have chain wallets, right? Same idea.
I don't know. I must be such a spectacle. I don't notice anybody staring at the charger or the phone. But if you get a little tiny short cable and one of the smaller chargers, they're really easy to carry.
Yeah.
And you'll get 3 times the battery life out of your phone. It's timed, man. It's timed. Apparently, you don't need another 12,000 milliamp hour charger. You need like one of the smaller 3 or 6,000
Imagine the days we
chargers.
actually just got 3 times the battery life out of the phone itself.
Yeah, dream on. The next thing you're going to say is they should concentrate less on thinness and more on adding usable battery life.
Yeah, I know.
So 5 years ago, man. It's all just make it thinner. Everybody's happy with a thinner phone. Oh, goodness. Let's give a shout out to Braintree, who's also bringing you this episode of This Week in Computer Hardware. Code for easy online payments. This is really cool. If you're building a mobile app and searching for a simple payment solution, you need to check out Braintree. If you have a website and you want to collect money from people and you don't want to suffer, the Braintree V.0 SDK makes it really easy to offer multiple mobile payment types. Start accepting PayPal, Apple Pay, Bitcoin, Venmo, cards, and more with a single integration. What's crazy about this is they're all about payments and they're all about secure payments, but they're really all about making it really painless. They got support for developers. The code you can integrate in minutes. You can give them a call and they'll handle the integration for you and walk you through it. They have support for Android, iOS, and JavaScript clients. They have SDKs in 7 languages: .NET, Node.js, Java, Perl, PHP, Python, Ruby. I am told that this is, quote, elegant code with clear documentation, but if you've seen code I've written, you'd know I couldn't judge that. But what's crazy about it, it is 10 lines of in-app code, 10 lines of code, and you can accept multiple payment types with one integration. Braintree is going to give you quick, knowledgeable developer support if you have any questions. Start accepting Apple Pay, PayPal, Bitcoin, Venmo, cards, and whatever's next with a single integration. With the Braintree V.0 SDK, one small snippet of code, and you're all set up in less than 10 minutes. To learn more and for your first $50,000 in transactions fee-free, do yourself a favor, go to BraintreePayments.com/Twitch. You'll be making your life simpler, and you'll be supporting This Week in Computer Hardware. That's BraintreePayments.com/Twitch. 10 lines of code. 10 lines of code. You can start accepting PayPal, Apple Pay, Bitcoin, Venmo, cards, and more. I like things that make life simpler, and Braintree's goal is to make things simpler for you. BraintreePayments.com/Twitch, and we want to thank them for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware.
Indeed.
Indeed. I did not expect this. I did not expect the update to the Amazon Fire TV. I also did not expect to hear about Project Aura. It's a Business Insider article. Quote, Google has hired a bunch of engineers from Amazon's Lab 126 for a new wearable tech initiative called Project Aura. So out of the ashes, there were a lot of people laid off when Amazon got upset after the phone debacle. I believe we're calling it the phone debacle now. So
yeah.
Whether or not these were engineers who were laid off or other engineers inside of Amazon, but basically Google's next generation wearable technology is now being built with the help of a bunch of labs, a bunch of engineers from Lab 126. So Project Aura, says Gillian D'Onofrio on Business Insider, appears to have started in June and is focused on reviving Google's troubled glass computer eyeglasses, as well as accelerating Google's efforts to develop related wearable technology. And apparently this is going to be part of Google and not popped around as another letter in the Google alphabet. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes beyond glass.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know what else they're going to change. It seems to me that form factor is the main issue there, right? Like it's, I don't know.
The big issue is the whole concept of being a glass hole.
I was for like a 2-week period, and then I returned mine.
I
took it around to all my family parties during Christmas, and everybody was wowed by it. And then it sat on a desk in the office for like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. It's like, well, I haven't touched that at all. I guess it's time to not spend $1,000 on it. So let's send it back. And so we did.
There you have it. Oculus Rift is having their big gathering, I think, next week on the 24th, the keynote, and probably unveiling of all sorts of exciting things. I myself am looking forward to finding out what's going on with that. It was interesting, something that came out of PAX that Sebastian wrote up was virtual reality. You know, it's kind of doing art in virtual reality as an art form. 6 artists from the gaming industry were brought together at this month's PAX Prime event in Seattle in a joint venture between NVIDIA, Valve, Google, and HTC to use virtual reality to create art. Quote, the result was very interesting to say the least. Wearing HTC's VR headset, the artists had 30 minutes each to create their work using Tilt Brush. Tilt Brush uses the HTC Vive's unique hand controllers and positional tracking to allow artists to paint in 3 dimensions. The software includes a remarkable digital palette, letting users draw GPU-powered real-time effects like fire, smoke, and light. And they had some pretty talented people. And you can go to NVIDIA's Facebook page to pick a winner. Quote, the artist with the most votes will win ultimate bragging rights, and voters will be entered to win a new GeForce GTX 980 Ti. So it'll be interesting to see. The whole VR thing is so early and so larval and so undeveloped. I think it's really exciting to kind of watch to see if it becomes something that I want to participate in.
I think most people have that same kind of stance on it. But if you look through what they created in that demonstration, it's actually really, really cool. And then there was another video. I don't know if we had the other video embedded or in the show notes as well. That was by a guy who did more like Disney style art, right? Where it shows him creating like a 3D version of Ariel from The Little Mermaid and kind of moving around it and walking around it, like drawing bubbles in the air that you kind of like walk through to get to the kind of, I guess, more of a sculpture than a drawing that he did. It was pretty neat to see what they've done. And again, this is, you know, the NVIDIA one that we were showing on the screen. They got 30 minutes to do something, and that's what talented people can do with it. I think it'll be really cool to have more of that art created and distributed to people who, like me, who have no artistic capability, but to be able to view it and walk around it and look at it in a way that, you know, a still flat surface image can't do. So, I mean, it even brings about ideas of like 3D tours of museums and stuff that are out there, right? That scans that you could walk around and view anywhere as long as you have a headset like that. So still pretty neat stuff. Still early, but still very neat.
There you have it. OMG Chad Chalk Steam controllers Robin Walker. Scott Michaud posted this up on PC Perspective. It's pretty interesting. OMG Jad talks with Robin Walker, the man who takes responsibility for all the hats in TF2 about the Steam controller in Alienware's booth at PAX Prime 2015. After several delays, the input device is scheduled to launch on November 10th, which will be a busy day, apparently. It has changed significantly over time, with early prototypes even playing around with a touchscreen. The two touchpads, while markers on them have changed from concentric rings to a cross on the left and a nothing on the right, were relatively close to their original concept. So it's interesting. They go over the design decisions, what rationale led to the grips on the back. I think this is going to be super interesting. Oh my goodness, Steam controllers. November
I got an email from Valve verifying our shipping address because I did order one of those as well. I'll be curious. Like, there's some things I think in that story or in that video they mentioned that the triggers in the back, the paddle triggers in the back, where your fingers wrap around the back of the controller. So as you squeeze down to, like, say, accelerate in a racing game, there's actually an additional click past all of that you can use for an additional function, right? That is unique, that I don't think exists on a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox controller today. But everything else, I'm still very curious to actually get some time with, right? Using the kind of touchpad surfaces that they've created and how all that works. Yeah, they're kind of showing all that stuff off. So I think the earliest pre-orders we'll get it like in mid to late October, and then the wide availability will be early November. So we'll know more a lot sooner than we think, I guess, in terms of has Valve figured out a way to disrupt the gaming controller market in the way that they disrupted game distribution methodology, I guess. Yeah.
It's funny when you go to this the hardware category, the Steam store, and there's the Steam controller, which you can pre-order, and there's the Steam Link, and then there's I just laugh because Alienware Steam Machine, which has no date, and then Nextbox, Asus, ROG, Gear, Cyber, Eclipse, Tiki, Gigabyte, Main Gear, Material.net, ScanX 3XS, Web Holland, Alternate Steam Machine, Origin Amiga Steam Machine, Zotac Steam Machine, all listed as shipping in November 2015. So I know we're going to be doing a lot in November.
Yes.
Oh boy, I can't decide if I'm excited or slightly horrified, but I think I'll choose to be excited.
It's good.
Dell XPS 12 might be a Surface Pro alternative. I'm not entirely sure what that means, man.
Well, so the Surface Pro, you've got a tablet with a kickstand and then a keyboard kind of attachment. Well, hey, guess what? Dell XPS 12 might be coming out with a kickstand and a keyboard attachment up front. So
that's like the Pro?
That's what that means, right? So Dell, I find it, so it's going to be a little bit smaller than the XPS 13. We've heard rumors about the XPS 15, which is basically similar to this XPS 13, but with just a larger size, right? Still a traditional clamshell notebook. The XPS 12 looks like it's going to eschew that standard design and go with a kind of kickstandy style stuff. This would bring Dell into the same market that Lenovo showed their Surface Pro alternative a couple 3 weeks ago, I guess, as well. Just basically a tablet with a kickstand and a keyboard attachment. I think this is a lot of validation for Microsoft's design of the Surface Pro. I mean, other than that, I don't really know. I think it's interesting that, maybe we'll get the same kind of, what do they call it? The infinity display that the XPS 13 has, right? With the very, really thin bezels. Will Dell's engineers be able to figure out a way to do that with the kickstand and still make everything strong enough to support itself internally? They talked about having an active stylus, having a 4K Infinity Edge touch display, front and rear cameras. I like that they call it a world-facing camera and then a user-facing camera. That's always good. Thunderbolt 3 support for one cable docking and 8 times faster transfer speeds than USB 3.1, up to 10 hours of battery life, and a backlit keyboard and precision touchpad, which is something I don't think the Surface Pro has. They don't have like a backlit version of their keyboard, I don't think. So it could be interesting, but no official releases yet. This is more of the leaked slide derivatives that are so popular these days. Rumored to launch in October, so not that long from now.
We wait with bated breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should take a moment to thank Ring. I'm going to let you thank Ring because I've just realized we have a flood of questions on Twitter, and I'm going to drop those into the script.
Oh, you're going
if you want to
run through some of those. So this episode obviously is brought to you by the Ring Video Doorbell. You can use your smartphone to see who is at your door. Using Ring.com app, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world. It's like caller ID for your home. Built into the Ring.com doorbell is an advanced motion detector. If someone comes to your door, you'll receive an alert on your smartphone, even if they don't ring the doorbell, which is nice. Ring comes equipped with an HD camera and night vision LEDs. You'll know when deliveries arrive, and you can talk with anyone at your front door. Did you know that 95% of home break-ins happen during the day? I did not know that. The Ring Video Doorbell helps you prevent those break-ins, as the first thing burglars usually do is ring the doorbell to see if anyone is home. So if you can answer it from your phone and even if you're not home, imply that you are home, prevent that first step of burglary attempts. Installing Ring takes minutes and comes with everything you need, including the drill bit and the level to make sure it looks good on your outside of your door there, which is nice. For total convenience, it connects to your existing doorbell wiring or runs off of a built-in rechargeable battery. I have one of these at our office, and it is running off a rechargeable battery, and I've had it's been months since we've had it installed, I guess, at this point, and have not had to recharge it a second time, which is nice. So that built-in rechargeable battery, it's not just a gimmick. It actually does operate on that form factor for a long time. So put your mind at ease and protect your home with a video doorbell. With the Video Doorbell, Time Magazine named one of the top 10 gadgets of 2014. Like I said, we have one here. I use it all the time for UPS, FedEx deliveries. If I'm not here, I can take the phone in my pocket, say, hey, yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Just go ahead and leave the package. And they're willing to do that without, requiring me to be there to have a signature, which is nice. Saved me a lot of time having to drive back and forth to either a FedEx depot or a UPS depot, or waiting for the next day for delivery. Right now, you can get, as our listeners, a $10 discount off of the normal price. You can protect your home and have peace of mind with Ring. Go to ring.com/Twitch. That's ring.com/Twitch, and you can get $10 off of the Ring Video Doorbell today. And we thank them very much for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware.
Yay. Thank you. If you haven't seen it, I'm just going to say that I want this case. Scott wrote this up for PC Per. It is the HDPlex H5. It is so gorgeous. He got pictures of it last time they had it. There were just... he just had a picture of the previous model. But if you haven't seen this, the HDPlex H5 is this gorgeous case from Fanless Tech, which is essentially fanless. It has a crazy collection of heat pipes inside the case and heat sinks on the side of the case. If you scroll down, you see this slightly ridiculous, and I say that with love and affection, collection of 8 heat pipes running to the CPU. They have a bunch of heat pipes running for a discrete GPU if you install it in there. It's not inexpensive, but it will accept wattage into the range of the Intel Core i7 6700. I want.
So it's interesting that if you look at that second picture, that is actually a GPU that is being cooled on that portion of the case, right? You can see the PCI Express kind of riser extender at the bottom of that. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner the display outputs, right? So the idea is, I haven't quite figured out, so they claim 95 watts for the CPU. I don't know if it's 95 watts for the whole system or 95 watts for the CPU and then 95 more watts for the GPU. Obviously, 95 watts in the world of a graphics card isn't going to get you a whole lot of horsepower, but you could add like a GTX 750 Ti that has a 75 watt TDP, but is way, way, way faster than any integrated graphics out there. So if the case can actually do that, you can get like a 6600K or 6700K Skylake processor and a GTX 750 Ti. You have a You have a really great home theater PC, right? Because you have all the transcoding power you could need with the Skylake part, and then pretty good 1080p gaming capability as well with the 750 Ti in there. And again, the whole idea is it being passively cooled by using the entirety of the chassis as the heatsink. Sounds crazy to me. I would love to see it implemented and actually try it. I mean, do you imagine there has to be some kind of airflow through it or on it or something, or do you think it can just sit in a home theater environment and kind of radiate out?
Well, I mean, looking at
watts of power.
It looks like there's there's all those heat pipes. Two, both sides of the case are, you can see them in the back. Basically, both sides of the case are heat sinks.
Yep.
And I should sort of correct a couple things. One, Fanless Tech is the website that took a look or unveiled the case itself. And the website for hd-plex.com is the company that sells the H5 chassis. There's a link to order it, but it turns out it is out of stock. I don't think they've actually started selling it yet.
Damn.
But it's interesting, right? Because they do, fanless power supplies, which I don't think provide enough wattage to feed that. But that's, that's kind of one of the issues with trying to do one of these tiny sort of ITX, mini ITX-based systems. Second generation of H5 series is in tooling phase. 8 heat pipe system solution for the CPU at 90 watts. And it looks like they're going to do a complete second one for the graphics card. So maybe one heat sink goes to the left side of the case and one heat sink goes to the right. Because basically they're doing 90 watt TDP for 8 heat sinks for the CPU, and then they're saying there's an optional 8 heat pipe heat sink system for the graphics card. So $275 is going to be the price. It is a nice looking piece of manufacturing, judging from their early pictures on the website. So Fanless Tech does the reviews of silent PC hardware. hd-plex is building the H5. And Ryan and I both are really, really curious to see what the performance on that is going to be.
Do you think that price is like decent? Because I actually do. Like, I kind of expected it to be a little bit more for what it is. I mean, how kind of customized it is, I guess.
I mean, I as somebody who recycles 10-year-old PC cases because, they're heavy and built well and they just don't fall apart, and is happy to buy them at Goodwill or yard sales or wherever they come from. It's not like I like spending money on cases, but this is a really nice piece of engineering and hardware. And if it, if it can dissipate the heat, if I can, go nuts on, gaming, at 1080p with this thing maxed out, and it doesn't overheat, I think it's probably more than worth the money. I like silence. It's a pretty cool feature in a home theater, and it's not the easiest thing to find. And it's looks like they're having these machined and custom built, and I'm very curious to see the first reviews. If I didn't have to pay for children, I'd be trying to order one right now. But there's none to order yet because they haven't built them yet. So I think the biggest challenge for me is figuring out what the power supply is going to be. Because I think I haven't seen a small ATX power supply or like one of these mini ITX power supplies smaller than the small ones for less than for more than 250 watts. So I'm kind of curious what the power supply situation is going to be. So we wait with bated breath. Let's do a speed round of questions real quick before we go.
Sure.
I'm going to fire this one out at you just to watch your facial expression. At Just Fred tweets, at Patrick Norton, will there be any Thunderbolt 3 love in the PC market? Like a little bit at the high end, where people edit video and use huge amounts of data.
I really think it comes into the mobile space above anything else, right? Because that is where the benefit of like the single cable docking. So we talked about the Dell XPS 12 having Thunderbolt 3 for single cable docking, right? So they'll sell that machine and they'll sell a base that you can attach your keyboard, your storage, your monitor, all that other stuff to, your networking. And then you just come in, plug in your one cable to your laptop, and that'll work. And I think if that starts to take off, if the connectivity takes off, that maybe even in the desktop space, people start to look at what Thunderbolt 3 can do for storage or networking.
Right.
over higher performance machines.
Makes sense. At SEP332, at Patrick Norton, did you ever cover 802.11ac antenna design and placement? We have a little bit. You know, the big thing about 802.11ac is it's more antennas because it's MIMO and it allows it to do some really interesting beam forming. The general consensus based on the hardware at the high end of the market is more antennas is better, or at least more antennas sell better. But generally speaking, you need at least 3 antennas. You need to position them like anything else we tell you. If you know, the idea is if you have a house, to be at the center of the house is ideal. You know, unless there's some big signal absorbing thing at the center of your house, in which case you want to move it somewhere else. But 802.11ac, you know, from what Small Net Builder found, it actually 802.11ac routers in real world are doing some significant things to improve 802.11n performance, which is a big deal to me. 802.11ac, if you have the adapters in your devices, will bring significant performance improvements. You know, and to me, 802.11ac is everything 802.11n wasn't, which is a big statement because I found 802.11n to be tremendously disappointing in terms of range and performance, because as soon as you got more than like 8 feet from my router, the performance started to just drop through the floor. 802.11ac, you know, they basically do what they call beam forming. So the idea is it strengthens whichever antenna is going to reach to that device better. It's running over 5 gigahertz. So that's a little less crowded, doesn't penetrate, you know, walls or bricks as well. But the beam forming kind of helps make up for that. So I hope that helps a little bit. But yeah, the antennas essentially look a lot like the 802.11, you know, BG or N antennas, just AC. They use more of them and they use math to optimize how the beam of energy goes towards whatever device you're using. Yep. At Space Bob says, hear anything new about kinetic cooling heat sinks, and sends a link to the PC Per article on Cool Chip Technologies from back at CES 2015. And the short answer is no. It was some super cool gee whiz. You know, Cooler Master has partnered with Cool Chip Technologies. And if you go to the Cool Chip Technologies webpage, they still have that super awesome high performance cooler, and they have lots of information on kinetic cooling, and they've got a 1U server cooler. And I don't think either of us have seen or heard anything about these actually being sold in the public. So, you know, that's one of those products that it could become real or it could stay relatively hidden. And it all depends on what it costs and whether or not the engineers can make it work in the wild. One last one before we go. Mike Roberts, a.k.a. the Ginger Ninja, says, is it worth upgrading the R9 290 or should I hold off? Really depends on what your current GPU is.
Was he trying to upgrade the 290 or upgrade to a 290?
Oh, upgrading the R9 290 or should I hold off? So
I'm going to assume he means he has a 290, and should he upgrade it?
Yes.
I will equally give not a good answer because I don't know anything else. Like, are you running a 1080p monitor? Are you running a 25 by 14 monitor? Are you going to run a 4K monitor? What games do you play? Right. I would say in general, probably if you're running a 1080p monitor, that card's going to be fine for a little while. If you're looking to upgrade to maybe a higher resolution, maybe a 3440 by 1440 screen, or 25 by 14, or maybe even 4K, then you're going to need to upgrade that GPU for sure in order to take advantage of that stuff at its best. But if you are like the vast majority of people, you're still on a 1080p screen, then I would say if it's not broken, don't fix it yet.
That, ladies and gentlemen, I think is excellent advice upon which to end the show. TechThing.com is the place I spend most of my days. Just did a roundup review of our episode that just posted. of some really nice new earbuds from Feo. Took a look at Puro's new in-ear monitors. We talk about the replacement for TrueCrypt, or kind of what comes after TrueCrypt, and quite a bit more. You can find that at techthing.com or youtube.com/techthing. Ryan Shrout, who's also known as Mr. PCPer.com, can be found at PCPer.com. Anything you can tease that's coming out, or is it all secret?
We should have more DirectX 12 goodness to talk about next week. So I can tease that a little bit. And other than that, we're working on we're trying to get some other stuff finagled around the R9 Nano to demonstrate what other cases and circumstances might be useful for that particular product. But we'll see how that pans out too.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out a small enough case. Like, I want to fit that into sort of a case the size of a book, and I keep coming up against the issues. Like, oh, I'm going to wire myself, I'm going to wire and coil cover a 12-foot long homemade ATX power supply cable. And then I shake my head.
Yep.
Power. I need a smaller 600-watt power supply. And a pony. Well, you probably do it with a 300-watt power. No, what's the TDP on the
175 watts on the Nano. It's
so basically high. you're looking at needing at least a 300-watt power supply.
That would be a stretch. Right. Depending on what GPU you had, or CPU you had rather, you could probably do it.
It'd be
close.
A
good 300. Yeah.
A good 300, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.
All right.